Greg, cut the music for a sec. Hey, everybody. Like a 15-minute warning, all right? We're going to get started in about 15 minutes. If you need to use the restroom, drinks, food, whatever, we're going to kick off in about 15 minutes. Okay.
Rebel, rebel,
All right. Good evening, everyone. We're going to get started. If everybody wants to come on in and take your seats, I'm going to give a very quick intro about why PubKey and what this is, because it can be a little bit confusing. I'm Thomas. I'm one of the co-founders of PubKey. Can we do like a... turn it up a little bit? All right, can you turn up the microphone just a little bit? We have these doors. We can close these doors if we need to, so that we cut out some of the bar noise. We're just starting to do these events, so we're going to work out some kinks. Anyway, welcome to PubKey. Not just a Bitcoin bar. We are an event space, a community space, trying to bring back the importance of dive bar culture, pubs and taverns, local neighborhood community and culture getting together and talking about important issues. And here, give us 1 second. Let's figure this out. Do you want to drop the doors? All right, false start. We're going to close the garage doors so that we don't get too much noise pollution from the bar. I'll be back in 2 seconds. All right, that's better. All right, that's better. I'm back. Let's try this again. Hi, everybody. I'm Thomas. Welcome to PubKey. I'm really excited that everybody's here tonight. We have a fantastic event. Thank you to the National Endowment for Democracy and all the activists. We have 6 activists that are going to talk about freedom technology, the work that they're doing all around the world, fighting authoritarian dictatorships. PubKey operates these things a little bit differently. This is not meant to be a fireside chat or a conference panel. It's meant to be a tavern chat. So if there's a technical term of art that you don't quite understand, don't be shy, raise your hand, ask, what was that word you just said? That's okay here. And if you want to double click on an issue, feel free to do so. More engagement always makes these things a lot better. And we'll be live streaming. These will be on our channels after tonight's event as well. And thank you all for being here. Welcome to the stage, Damon Wilson, the president of the National Endowment for Democracy.
Thomas, thank you so much. Thank you for having us into your home. Absolutely. It's awesome to have everybody here tonight. So, tonight we're going to talk about a few things, and you're going to hear from some amazing people. We're going to talk about freedom. We're going to talk about technology. And we're going to talk about the price that people pay when they fight for freedom. So to have this conversation, it's awesome to have you all here. They're amazing people who have been through this whole effort. But I'm going to invite up to start Leopoldo López, Berta Valle, Lilian Tintori. Let's put our ladies in the middle. Berta, come on up, Berta. Lilian. Come on up, Berta. All right, so let me tell you who these folks are. I'm going to put you on the edge there. I'm going to put our authors here. Come on in, come on in, come on in. So the National Endowment for Democracy is America's foundation for freedom. We have the privilege of helping the American people stand by those who are seeking freedom around the world. We're usually in the background, and they're in the foreground. So tonight, here we have with us some pretty remarkable freedom fighters. Leopoldo López was a mayor in Caracas, one of the most popular politicians in Venezuela, imprisoned, went through incredible challenges, was released from prison, imprisoned again, and has come together to build something that's quite powerful, the World Liberty Movement, which we'll talk about tonight. He's also an incredible father, an incredible husband. Lilian and Berta are among the cutting edge of those who have been fighting for political prisoners around the world. They didn't ask for that role. Lilian found her husband, the father of her daughter, who's here tonight with us, in prison, and she mobilized everything to ensure that the world would stay spotlighted on how to release him. At the same time, Berta Valle, her husband is not here with us tonight. He just had to leave. Felix Maradiaga from Nicaragua, an incredible politician in Nicaragua, thrown into prison. And these two women became thrust into the defense of freedom, fighting for their families, and by doing so have shown a light for so many others. So I'm going to kick this off with Leopoldo. You're here in Washington at a time where we're talking about tyrants and autocrats. We're seeing what's happening in Venezuela, what's happening in Iran. The conversation here in Washington is about what are Americans doing? What's the U.S. military doing? What are we happening? The point for tonight is we're going to hear from Venezuelans, Nicaraguans. We're going to hear from Burmese. We're going to hear from Russians themselves about what are they doing for freedom in their own countries. So Leopoldo, help set the scene for us. Freedom, technology, and the price that freedom fighters pay. Why does this matter in Washington this year?
Well, thank you, Damon, and thanks to PubKey. I would like to start especially thanking Damon for his courage in taking the National Endowment to Democracy to new frontiers. And we are a moment of challenges in the city, and I think Damon is taking the National Endowment to Democracy to the technology frontier, to the activist frontier. The fact that we are doing this event here at PubKey, that is a Bitcoiner hub, that it's talking about the event between Bitcoin and open source technology and human rights and freedom and democracy, it's great. So I want to congratulate you, your team, for thinking out of the box. And I know it's not easy to think out of the box because sometimes bureaucracies feel comfortable in the comfort zone. But the comfort zone is not where change happens. Change happens out of the box. And that's what you are doing by challenging your own organization to think about stablecoins, to think about Bitcoin, to think about Nostr, to think about BitChat, to think about just different ways of solving the problems that this organization was meant to solve in the 1980s when it was created, because the problems are the same. How do we organize people? How do we mobilize people? How do we communicate with people? How do we connect people? The problems are the same, but the autocrats have learned to use technology in a very effective way to surveil their population, to imprison people, to shut down their voices, to coordinate amongst themselves. That's why you see in my country, Venezuela, you see that after the capture of Maduro, the most famous song that became viral was a song that was, "Where are they? Where are they, the communists that were going to defend us? Where are the people from Iran? Where are the people from China? Where are the people from Russia?" So I use this example because it's so mainstream for people in a country like Venezuela, that the most popular song was just talking about the network of autocrats. And people were saying and dancing that that network was not enough to protect. Yeah, you wanna, you haven't.
Good beats. Those are good beats.
So where are they? Where are they? Where are the Russians? Where are the Chinese? Where are the Iranians? So that's something very obvious if you live in Venezuela, if you live in Nicaragua, if you live in Uganda. That's something that you see. You see Russian soldiers coming in and out. You see their technology. You are subject to the surveillance technologies coming from the Chinese. But when you come to the US or you're in Europe, it's not that clear that the threat to democracy is being networked amongst non-ideological mighty powers that have a common enemy, democracy, because it's not ideological. It's not like the nationalists from Russia, the kleptocrats from Venezuela, the communists from China, or the theocrats from Iran are aligning themselves alongside ideology. They are aligning themselves alongside the idea to be autocratic in their way to hold on to power and to destroy a common enemy. Who is that common enemy? Democracy, and particularly the US and Europe, and the freedoms that we hold to be universal. So that's why we created the World Liberty Congress as an alternative to this, as a space where the people from these countries who are fighting for the same freedoms that you have in countries like the United States, that we can have them in our countries. And it's been an incredible experience, not just to talk about our hardships. We are not in the business of collecting tears. I mean, that's one of the things. If you come into the World Liberty Congress, you have to sign a sheet that you will not collect tears from your, no, you can cry. Lilian tells me,
we can cry.
Yeah, you can cry. Yeah, Lilian always says this. You can cry. But my point being that we don't want to come to stages. We have all been victims. We have here, Vladimir Kara-Murza, who has been poisoned several times, thrown into prison. You talk to the guy, he's like, you would never get a victim talking to you. You will get a freedom fighter that has been a victim, but not a victim.
Shout out.
A victim
Shout out for
collecting
Vladimir.
tears. And his wife, the same thing. So I just want to say that the attitude is very important. I have a friend from Iran that was a member of the Olympian team of wrestling. And he said something to me that stuck to me. He said, I've been to the mat hundreds of times. I have lost and I have won. But I have never gone to the mat thinking that I was going to go to lose. So you always have to have the attitude, the winning attitude, the right attitude. And I also think that we also have to have the positive energy, the good energy, the good humor. Because, yes, we are in a difficult fight, but again, we need to fight it in a way that is attractive to the young people, that is attractive to the people who can picture a better future. So that's what we're doing at the World Liberty Congress. We're bringing technology in order to become more effective, not for technology's sake, but technology as a way to solve problems.
Leopoldo, I'm going to come back on the technology, but this man has attitude. He has attitude. He has good attitude. All right, I'm going to keep going with the questions, but you did hear Thomas. You have the right to interrupt, ask at any point, so jump in. I'm going to turn to Berta and Lilian. So we were talking earlier today. These are two amazing women, but they didn't set out to be human rights defenders. This fight came to your family. And so Leopoldo just gave us the attitude, but there are consequences. Y'all have had to suffer as families. So share with a little bit with the group about how you've turned the fact that they came after your family, how you turned that into a strength, how you have gained dignity, and what you've done to carve out pathways to freedom. That's our conversation. Pathways to freedom. What does that mean? All right, Lilian, you start. Berta, you pick it up.
Okay.
This is the tag team.
Yes.
Talk
so,
about attitude in this relationship.
Yes.
This is good.
Where is Grace? Grace, the
Grace is here.
attitude. Grace, the
Grace.
attitude. Grace. The dad of
We're gonna
Grace
get
is in
Grace up here,
prison.
too.
Yes, of course. Okay, so Leopoldo was in jail for 7 years, and I was a yoga teacher and a kite surf champion in my country.
She was literally the best kite surfer in Venezuela, the #1 champion in the country.
So that was my life.
National record.
A national record. So that was my life. I was a yoga teacher, a kite surfer, a happy woman, and I get in love with Leopoldo. Leopoldo was the mayor, and then Leopoldo denounced Maduro, and Leopoldo go to jail for 7 years. January 3rd, I congratulate Leopoldo, because for many, many years, Leopoldo denounced Maduro, and Maduro is in jail. Congratulations, Leopoldo. You and all the Venezuelan people that work a lot, Freddy, many, many people that work a lot for, Isabela Picon is here as well. Venezuelan people need to celebrate because it's a victory. So I learned, I don't understand nothing about human rights in that moment. I don't understand like political things like Freddy Guevara helped me a lot all these years. So I learned a lot, but I feel that the most important thing in this situation is the power of love. So I want to do an exercise very quickly to you understand more our life. The life of Berta, the life of Evgenia, my life. So let's close our eyes a little bit and imagine the person that you love, pick one of your family. Your favorite person in the world. And imagine that person in a small cell, dark cell, without light, without phone, alone. Now, open your eyes and ask what you're gonna do. Wait, silence, go to the action, ask for help. How do you feel? So that's we realized that we need to make a decision, and the decision was the same, defend for love. So I promised my kids, I'm gonna return your dad to home. And I start working, not stop, working, not stop. And Leopoldo is here. He's not dead, he's not in prison, he's here with us.
Amazing.
So Berta, what have y'all done to help others now? Tell us the story about how you've turned this into a superpower.
Yeah, so in my case, I come from TV. So I was a TV anchor in my country.
No. She was the most famous face in Nicaragua. Every Nicaraguan saw her on TV every night.
Thank you, Damon. I was a TV anchor. And it's true. I miss those days. But so, of course, I was very engaged with what was happening in the country, right? But I worked in the morning show. So in the morning show, you're supposed to good news, right? But, you know, I have that thing inside of me, and I tried to bring human rights into the morning shows. And it worked very, very well. People were very kind with me, and they allowed me to speak about it. So I was kind of involved in understanding what was going on in the country. And also, Felix also warned me a lot about that something like what happened in 2018 in Nicaragua was going to happen. So for many years, he was warning everyone. He was coming here to Washington. And all of a sudden, it happened, right? And I remember Felix telling me about this security protocol, always. He comes from he was a General Secretary of Ministry of Defense. So he was involved with a lot of security topics. So for me, having a security protocol was part of his work. And the day that the protest started and the police started killing the students, and because Felix was a professor, right, their student called him and say, hey, Professor Maradiaga, they're killing us, we need you. And that moment, Felix come to me. It was around 10 in the evening when he left home. He said, like, this moment have come. If I don't appear in the next 8 hours, activate the protocol of security, the security protocol. And the security protocol was about, you know, having a list of people that I should call if something happened. So if you can imagine, 10 p.m., 11, midnight, you know, 5 in the morning, I was already desperate. We were trying to reach him, he didn't answer. And I remember the security protocol, right? And one of the first person that was in that list in Ortho organizations was someone from NED. And I call him, I can tell his name, he's Aimel.
We love you, Aimel.
Yeah, he's not here with us, so thank you, Aimel. And I say, like, look, Aimel, I am Berta, I don't know you, I'm Felix's wife. He told me to call you if something happened, and he haven't appeared in the last 10 hours. I don't know what to do. And he also started, like, explaining me. And the main point here is that somehow Felix already warned me about this situation, but then in 2021, I am in this position where my husband has been arbitrarily detained. He was disappeared. I didn't know anything about it. But he also did something that I appreciate, which was to put me in touch with the international human rights lawyer, who was Jared Ganser, also Lilian's lawyer in Leopoldo. And I was able to reach Jared, and we created this strategy to advocate internationally. So when I look back, right, it's really hard, it's painful. I left so many things that I loved, but at the same time, I now understand that there is purpose. So how do you turn from being a victim to becoming an activist? And this, I believe, by putting purpose in what happens, right? And now our superpower is that we have the empathy and the understanding and the willingness to accompany other family members of political prisoners that have suffered the injustice that we lived. And this is how, can I?
Yes,
Yeah?
please show us.
This is how
Brag.
we co-write these 2 handbooks. Pathway to Freedom Handbook for the Liberation of Political Prisoners. This one, it's about, you know, all the recommendations that we can give to families when they're advocating. And this second one is for After Liberation, Handbook for Reintegration of Political Prisoners. So we collect everything that, you know, we have lived also together with experts on the field to put together easy, clear, simple recommendations in order for former political prisoners and their family to rebuild their lives. So this is how we turn pain into purpose.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Go, yeah, Lillian.
The word, the action is, you know what is resilience? This example that we are working right now with families of political prisoners, we're working this every week. We apply and explain this handbook in sessions online with families around the world. That's called resilience, but it's not only resilience, it's proactive resilience.
But Lillian, Berta, just why does this matter? I mean, help bring it to life about what it means, Leopoldo, to be a political prisoner. Why does it matter? And why does it matter for Americans? This is a messy situation in Nicaragua, a messy situation in Venezuela. Why should the American people be supporting this work for political prisoners? Why do you think this matters?
Well, first of all, because we're humans, right? And we believe that American people have been really a reference for everyone. And I mean, America, democracy, America has modeled the democracy for us, right? So there is a connection, deeply connection, and part of those values are the one that we believe that people have. So first, we are humans, we have to care of the pain of others. But also, and Leopoldo mentioned this, authoritarian regime are cooperating, right? They're working together, they're supporting themselves. So I believe that also people that protect freedom and value democracy have to do the same thing. So our call for American people to care about political prisoners is actually about collaborating with us, right? And also, when this regime gets stronger by imprisoning freedom fighters, dissidents, right? This also becomes a threat to America, right? When we in the case of Nicaragua, when you have a dictatorship as Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo's dictatorship implanted in the country, just 2 hours flight from the United States, that should be something to care about, you know, for the security of this country and so many other things.
You know, as an American who has to talk about this, we think about when you're in your darkest hour and you remember who stands by your side. And for us to remember, as the American people, if we can stand by the most amazing people when they're in their darkest moment, we have hope. We know that you're amazing. We know that people like you are going to be running your countries. And I think for us to understand that bond, like, that creates something very special for us to have that relationship of trust. It is an important thing for us as Americans. Maybe, Leopoldo, 2 pieces of this. What does it feel like to know that there's those on the outside that are pushing, that remember, that are fighting for you? And then I want to bring it back into the tech side of this and draw you out. But first, talk as the experience of a prisoner, and then let's bring in the technology.
I think that every political prisoner has gone through getting strength from knowing that your cause is not dead, from knowing that people are recognizing that the reason for you being in prison is worth fighting for. Not being forgotten is the most important thing for a political prisoner. Thinking and knowing that there are people that are continuing to fight for the same reasons that you are spending time in prison, it's what keeps you alive. Because being forgotten will take you to a cycle of just depression. And if you are in a place where you start losing meaning, then you can start losing sanity, and then you can start losing your everything. So the pillar of sanity is to know that what you're fighting for is being fought for, and that when it comes personal, it's your family. So knowing that your family is there supporting you and that they are also engaged in the same cause, it's also a source of great strength. And I've, unfortunately or fortunately, I have the experience of being part of a movement where 700 people from our movement, our friends, Fred is here, but any person from our movement, 1 in every 2 have gone to prison. So we have a huge sample of people that have gone to prison in all shapes and forms. Solitary confinement, or prison with a lot of people, or prisoners that are cold or are hot. So we have a very, very wide understanding of the way in which people react. And it's really interesting because some people react in a way that they expect that when they come out, they get immediate recognition from everybody. And that's natural. And those are the people that tend to become bitter. Then there are people that come out of prison stronger, and these are the people that continue the fight. And it's really interesting to see how there are like psychological patterns in the way people react to the same process. And that gives us the knowledge for people like Berta and Lilian to take all of this understanding of what are people going through in prison, to talk to their families, to keep their families strong, because if the family is strong and the prisoner knows that the family is strong, the prisoner is strong. So it's a cycle that you need to constantly feed.
Thanks, Leopoldo. Before I go to technology, Grace, Hey, Grace, can you come up for a second? So I want to take a moment while we're talking about this, before we move on to technology, to introduce you to Grace Jen. Grace is an incredible young woman who was off on an amazing career and knew that she was going to be known by what she did. And we talked about it earlier, Grace, but you are known by what has happened to your father. Grace's father, she's going to join you. Lilian, stay here, Lilian. You comforted her. You join her real quick. Lilian had this conversation today. So Grace's father is Pastor Ezra Jin of a church in China, an underground church, and he's been in prison since last October. And so we've been today with a lot of political prisoners who've been released, but sadly we're with a lot of people that still have family in prison. Grace, share with us a little bit of your situation, but also what you're learning from your new colleagues and solidarity here.
Yeah, thank you so much. I just want to say again, just thank you so much for the opportunity and for me to be able to share. One of the things that I heard today, like that Vladimir also said, that one of the key things that these autocrats do is to target families and to punish them in relations to the loved ones. And Sophie Luo, who's sitting in the back, she's also the wife of
Yes, she is.
Ding
We're thinking of your
Jiaxi, who's
husband,
also
Sophie.
detained. Same with Shi Minglei, her husband is still also imprisoned in China. Or sorry, like not allowed to leave, exit banned in China. And one of the things that Sophie said just now was that they take our family and we become a bigger family together. And so I think it's just, yeah, it's just incredible to have this bigger family. And today, like Lilian, Berta, and everyone here was just so open and welcoming and bringing me into this as a family. One of the things that you also mentioned about why should America care? I think America is great because America is a good nation. And I think part of it is that you fight for the values, you have convictions, and these people believe in those. And that's the difference between these autocratic nations that are banding together and America. And many times they try to pretend that America's just like any other nation, just like China, just like Venezuela, just like Cuba. But it's not. And when we fight for people like our families and the fight for what is right, fight for what is good, it reminds the world that like America is strong and America stands by its values, and ultimately America is a good nation. And for example, in China, they are more afraid of the Chinese people than foreign enemies. Like they spend more money on its own security against its own people than their military. They see 22-year-old girls who is fighting for Tibetan rights as the enemy of the state. They see 70-year-old Jimmy Lai as the enemy of the state. They see my father, who all he wanted to do was to pray to God and preach sermons, as the enemy of the state. And I think that, again, showcases that, like, America is different. And I think when we stand with folks like our families who are detained, it, again, just reinforces what kind of a nation we are as well.
Let's give it up for Grace and Pastor Ezra Jin. Thank you. Thank you.
Let me make
Please,
an
Berta.
announcement because Sophie is here. Sophie and her team just translated the manuals into Chinese, Mandarin. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank you. So thank you, Sophie. So before we bring up some other guests, I'm going to come back to linking this to you found empowerment through laying out this handbook. But one of the things that has permeated the conversations is a David versus Goliath. You're dealing with regimes that want you to feel as if you have no hope, no choice. And yet many of you in this room, and you, Leopoldo, has spoken articulately about this, have leaned into how to use technology to even the playing field so that there can be more successful Davids versus Goliaths. So say a word now about how technology is an empowering tool for the fight for freedom.
Well, technology in itself can be used for the bad or for the good. So the Chinese particularly have been very, very good in using technology to increase the capacity to do social surveillance. And this has grown exponentially since COVID. The facial recognition, cameras deployed everywhere, so, and all sorts of technologies to control the population. So technology is not inherently good or bad. What is good or bad is the way in which you can use it. So technology can solve problems. What are problems that we all face in all of the countries that we're fighting against autocratic regimes? We need to solve the communication problem. How do we communicate effectively? How do we communicate anonymously, privately, when having your name attached to a message can mean prison? So that's a problem to solve, and technology can solve that. The other problem that technology can solve is how do you get resources into countries that are closed and dominated by regimes that use money to surveil and to control. So since 2007, I've not been able to have a bank account in my country. And this is true for hundreds of people, thousands of people. We've had movements and organizations that have not been able to be registered because we cannot register them. So technology, particularly open source technology, and in this case, Bitcoin and stablecoin, have solved that problem. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin is at a high price or a low price, because that's not the problem that we are solving. We are not solving an investment alternative. It's not about investing in Bitcoin and getting, a better return on that investment. It's about getting resources into a country that you otherwise couldn't be able to get. And I think that this is a problem that organizations like NED, and especially organizations on the humanitarian realm that are giving support to hundreds of thousands or millions of people with the coordination of the regimes. So if you can give humanitarian aid without going through the financial system of these countries, you are also providing not just aid, but you are providing freedom. Because we have seen, and I've seen it in Venezuela, and I've talked to my friends from Africa and Asia, we have seen how autocrats use aid also as a form of control. So technology for us is the solution to very basic problems that are always present. How to communicate, how to move resources, and how to organize. And that's why we are using open source technology to do all of these things. And we can go into great detail. We just did a podcast with Thomas, so we can send you the link, and you can get a lot more of the insights from Rwanda to Nicaragua to Venezuela in how we are using this.
So Nicolas Maduro, Daniel Ortega, Rosario Murillo, Xi Jinping, they tried to put these people down. They have risen up. You have given hope to so many others. Please join me in a round of applause for this group of amazing freedom fighters.
Thank you.
We love you. Thank you. And we're going to cycle up some more freedom fighters here. So let me invite Vladimir, Evgenia, Wei, Anaïse, come on up, come on up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wei, come on up. Why don't the two of you take the sofa? You take the sofa. Wei, you're over here. Or Anaïse, you come over here. No, come over here. Come over here. Come over. Although it's cozy. Actually, heck, I'll join you for a second up here. You got your chair. You got your chair. All right. So we're going to continue this conversation about the fight for freedom. And I'm going to ask Vladimir, Evgenia, you represent one of the biggest threats to Vladimir Putin was the voice of this man. And he paid a very, very heavy price for it, being poisoned not once, twice, imprisoned. And one of the most amazing things that I saw in this sense of the tragedy that you faced, Vladimir, was the fire that unleashed in Evgenia. This woman is amazing and became not just a passionate, outspoken person committed to the liberation of her husband, but became one of the most articulate advocates for political prisoners in Russia and around the world. So let me start with you, Evgenia, and tell us how Vladimir Putin's efforts to break your family became a source of strength for how you could fight for others. You should have, let's see, let me give you this mic. You've got one there. Great. I'll leave you with the sofas. Here, take this one and we'll change. Yep, it's on. Yep.
Well, Damon, it's dangerous to make a woman angry. Very, very true. And we women, we know how to use our anger to advance good causes. I've learned a lot about it in the last 3 years. And it's true. I mean, I've been married to this guy for over 20 years. And we've built a beautiful life together. We have 3 kids. And I had my dream job. I used to be a translator and interpreter with French. French is my first foreign language. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But my husband has also been in the opposition to the Putin regime for as long as Vladimir Putin has been in power. So a quarter of a century of fighting that regime, going at it again and again and again. And of course, I knew that this was, well, honestly, I didn't think of what it's gonna bring to our family, how difficult it might be for our family to have Vladimir do what he did, because the only thing that mattered to me is that that is my partner. And to me, that is the only way marriage works. You are a team. You stand up for each other. You help each other. You support each other. If you're not willing or ready to do that, then marriage doesn't make any sense. It's pointless. So, yes, in 2015, he was poisoned for the first time for his work on the Magnitsky legislation, pushing democratic countries to adopt personal sanctions, a law that would introduce personal sanctions against human rights violators. First poisoning, he was in a coma, he was given a 5% chance to survive. We had 3 kids at the time already, a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 9-year-old. This stubborn guy survived, and I brought him home.
Woo.
He couldn't do much. He couldn't walk. He was sick every couple of hours. Our 9-year daughter knew when to grab something, a receptacle, run to her father, because she knew, a 9-year-old kid knew that her father was about to throw up. He walked with a cane for over a year because his left side didn't work. There was peripheral nerve damage from the poison they used on him. And as soon as he was able to walk a couple of blocks, he took his cane and he went back to Moscow. And I was just looking at him and thinking, I was like, the wind's gonna take, just take you away like Mary Poppins. He was wobbling there, but he wobbled back home. And he continued, and he said that I need to do this in Russia. I need to look these people in the eyes and call them what they are. I need to call them kleptocrats. I need to call them murderers. I need to do this at home. In 2017, it happened again, and again in Russia. And again, I flew there, and he survived again. Look at this man. And I brought him home to the kids here in the States. And I knew that as soon as he could walk, he would go back. there was no question in me. I didn't have to ask. I knew that this is what it would be. And I never tried to stand in his way because, again, this is how teamwork functions. This is, you marry someone when you decide that this is the person you want to share your life with. When you share your life with the person, you fight for the person. You fight alongside that person. And of course, when the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February 2022, Vladimir refused to leave. He said, I need to be here. I need, again, to call these people murderers and war criminals from here, from my apartment in Moscow. And of course, in April, he was thrown in prison, and then there was one criminal case after another. He collected a whole array of them. And in the end, he was sentenced to 25 years of strict regime in Siberia. And I realized that yet again, the Russian regime was trying to deprive my kids of a father. Yet again, I realized that that this regime was trying to destroy a family. Yet again, it made me so angry. Made me so angry. I thought, oh, well, who are they? These murderers who go and invade independent countries, who go after our friends in Russia, who commit political assassinations basically on a daily basis. Who are these people? And, you know, as Vladimir's wife, as Vladimir's partner, as my kid's mother, and as a Russian citizen, I needed to stand up and say, no, no, you're not going to be able to silence my husband because I'm going to be his voice, and I'm going to continue, and I'm going to say what I think of you again and again and again. And so that I was extremely lucky to find a community that believed in raising voices. I was extremely lucky to find a community of people from all over the world. Anaïse is sitting here. I love you. Anaïse and her sister Corinne are amazing human rights fighters. And, you know, if that is not enough, they're also daughters of the legendary Paul Rusesabagina, who saved over 1,000 people during the Rwandan genocide of Tutsi. I met and came to become friends with Rushan Abbas, one of the most prominent voices for the Uyghur people. Masih Ali-Nejad, a beautiful force of nature, unstoppable force of nature. Lilian and Berta, who have become friends and inspiration to me, because while I was still fighting for Vladimir's life, while I was still on this very painful journey, they had already they had already become victorious in saving their husbands, and that gave me hope that I can actually, maybe I will be able to bring Vladimir home yet again. So what I'm trying to say is that, you know, I was a novice, and I'm still a novice in all of this. I don't know much. I've learned a few things, but I've had so many incredible people and friends who helped me, who guided me, who supported me, and who told me to never, ever give up. And I knew that I was fighting the right cause. I knew what I was fighting for, and I knew how terrible, how monstrous that regime in the Kremlin is. And I wanted them to know, behind those Kremlin walls, that whatever they do, we're never gonna stop fighting them. We're never gonna say, oh, that's okay, let's just forget about it. No, we're gonna keep at it. And if that means that I have to become a public speaker and a public campaigner, then be it. I will go out there, I will fight my own, I'm pretty much an introverted person. I know you're not going to believe it, but it is true. I'm just wearing a mask very effectively. So it just, I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to learn. I am being taught by the best of the best. I'm going to learn, and I'm going to take my fight further and further until this monstrous regime collapses and Russia stops being a threat to everyone, including itself.
Whew. Thank you, Evgenia. So Vladimir Putin's strategy and what he's taught other dictators is that you really need to convince your own people that there's no point in resisting, there's no point in challenging. It's nihilism, like, the Americans are corrupt as we are. And yet your family reacted differently, not in that we're hopeless, and that you went out and built and grabbed that power, Evgenia. So Vladimir, what did you learn about your wife? I mean, this was an effort that was out to break you and break your family. What did you learn about your wife? What did you learn about your family? And then I want to pivot to what you learned about this regime in Moscow.
Well, thank you so much, Damon, for putting together this amazing crowd, this amazing conversation in this beautiful place. First of all, I'll just say that, and I think I can speak for a lot of my friends and colleagues who are in a similar situation, you cannot do what we do without the family support and without the rocks that are our families that stand behind us. I can speak for myself, and I know I speak for a lot of people. It is simply not possible. Many, many years ago, I was making a documentary film about a Soviet dissident, and I was interviewing a human rights legend, Irwin Cotler, former Justice Minister of Canada and a lifelong passionate advocate for prisoners of conscience the world over. He represented, at one point, Nelson Mandela, Andrei Sakharov, Natan Sharansky, and so many, many, many others. And we got talking about the sort of late Soviet period, early 1980s. And he said to me a thing that stuck in my mind. He said, from my long experience, Irwin told me, the success stories are those political prisoners who have strong, dedicated, and committed wives standing behind them. Those people, like Sharansky, like Yuli Edelstein, like Andrei Sakharov and others, they have the success stories, and their stories end well. And thinking back now to many years ago in that conversation, I'm yet one more proof of that, as is Leopoldo, who was just here, as is Felix, whose wife Berta you just saw. We would not be able to do what we do without feeling the back of our families behind us. Of course, the regimes know this too. And certainly when it comes to our country, ever since the Soviet times, so for more than a century, it has been a deliberate strategy, a deliberate policy of the dictatorship and the Kremlin that when they punish the political opponent, they have to punish the family as well. It was very deliberate. It was a chosen policy. In fact, at one point it was codified. In August 1937, Nikolai Yezhov, the head of the NKVD, the Soviet secret police, who was one of the architects of the Great Terror, actually signed a directive that was called the Directive on the Wives of the Enemies of the People, which codified into law, if I can use that word, that those women who were married to people who had been executed or jailed by the Soviet regime as quote-unquote enemies of the people, they'll be given a minimum 5-year automatic prison sentence just because they were the wives of these people, for nothing else. They didn't even pretend there was anything else. Now, of course, in later years, this was not codified, this was not official, this was not announced, but it was still very much the policy of the regime. And it continues to be the policy, for example, today in relation to all those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of our fellow Russian citizens who remain behind the walls of Vladimir Putin's Gulag. I was imprisoned in Omsk, southwestern Siberia, a place well known for holding political prisoners ever since the Russian Empire and then, of course, again in the Soviet Union. So I was held in solitary confinement in a maximum security wing, so I didn't see anybody else in that colony, in that prison, but I knew that there were the worst kind of people who were there. There were murderers and rapists and drug traffickers. And all of them, no questions asked, had a right to a weekly call to their families. It was not even under discussion. They would just go and talk. That was natural. It's a right that, in fact, is guaranteed by Russian law. Now, of course, in theory, it was guaranteed to me as well, but that is not how the Kremlin treats political prisoners. in all the time that I was in Siberia, I was allowed one phone call home. We have 3 kids, as Evgenia said, and it was a 15-minute call. Had one security officer standing next to me, the other one listening on another phone on a line. And Jenny had to stand there literally on the other side with a stopwatch and timing, and whenever 5 minutes would pass, she would physically take the phone from one child and pass it to another. It is a deliberate policy of the Putin regime to torture the families as well, the loved ones, not just the prisoner. But I want to go back to something Leopoldo said on the stage a few minutes ago, that when the prisoner knows that the family is strong, the prisoner is strong as well. And that was absolutely true. And I knew that I'm a very lucky and fortunate man, that I have this force of nature that I share in my life with, that I knew we were going to be okay. And I knew the kids were going to be okay. And what I'm really grateful to Evgenia for, among many, many other things, is that when she campaigned for my release while I was in Putin's Gulag, she campaigned not only for my release, but she wanted to make sure it was going to be a group exchange to get as many people out as possible. And there were people who would shrug at her and say, no, don't do this. This is hurtful. This is counterproductive. It's never going to happen. I mean, you'd be lucky to get your husband out. Why are you talking about all these other people as well? But she said, no, because I'm talking about it because it's the right thing to do. Because it's not only about, you know, an individual person. It's not only about our family. It's about so many people who are in prison in Russia today, having broken no law, having committed no crime, but only in prison because these people had the conscience to distinguish right from wrong and the courage to say it out loud. And all those skeptics who were saying all this to her were shamed, because on August 1st, 2024, 8 different countries organized the largest East-West prisoner exchange since the times of the Cold War, when 16 people, including 8 Russian political prisoners, were snatched out of the hell of Vladimir Putin's Gulag and brought to freedom. And so I think there's a very important lesson in there, that public attention works, that advocacy matters, and that democracies, when they actually stand on values and when they work together, are stronger than any dictatorship can ever hope to be. And on your second question, Damon, what I learned from, what I learned about the Putin regime. I knew everything I needed to know about Putin's regime back in 1999, 27 years ago. And I'm no oracle. I do not claim, any sort of particular insight or foresight. It's just it was obvious from the very beginning to anybody who was willing to see. I actually remember the day when I understood just who Vladimir Putin was and what direction he was going to take Russia and the world with it. It was December the 20th, 1999, the day still astonishingly celebrated by Russian security services as the Chekist Day, Dень Chekista, the anniversary of the founding of the Cheka, the communist secret police, in December of 1917, later the NKVD, later the KGB. They still celebrate that day. And on that day, December 20th, 1999, Vladimir Putin came to Lubyanka Square, to the FSB headquarters, former KGB, to officially unveil a memorial plaque to a man named Yuri Andropov. Now, Yuri Andropov symbolized everything that was wrong with the Soviet communist system, both in terms of domestic repression and in terms of external aggression. He'd been one of the architects of the Soviet invasion of Hungary in 1956 to crush the anti-communist revolution. As longtime head of the Soviet KGB, he prioritized the suppression of political dissent, expanded the abhorrent practice of punitive psychiatry when opponents of the communist regime were labeled mentally insane and kept in torturous conditions in psychiatric institutions. This was the man's legacy, and it was to him that Putin chose to unveil a memorial plaque in December of 1999. Again, I am no oracle, but after that day, I had no more questions. And anybody who was willing to see, it was obvious who Putin was for all these years. And I think the biggest mistake, the biggest miscalculation that many leaders of Western democracies, including American presidents of both parties, made in their relations with Putin, is that they deliberately chose to turn a blind eye on what Putin was doing at home in Russia, when he was shutting down independent media, rigging elections, getting opposition parties out of parliament, then going after his opponents, imprisoning his opponents. And all this time, many Western leaders chose to look the other way in a hope of continuing some sort of a relationship with Putin, some sort of a modus operandi with Putin, including in many cases lucrative economically with energy and so on. You know, we had one American president look into Putin's eye and see his soul, another American president push a reset button and so on and so forth. This has been going on for years. This is nothing new. And not only was this approach, in my personal view, immoral, but it was also astonishingly short-sighted and counterproductive. Because the one truth, the one absolute truth about Russia is that internal repression always inevitably translates into external aggression. Because a government that does not respect the rights of its own people will not respect the borders of its neighbors. And so those Western leaders who chose to look the other way when Putin was shutting down independent media, jailing opponents, rigging elections, beating down independent opposition protests, and so on, one day the world woke up to the largest military conflict in Europe since the end of the Second World War, which is what Putin's regime has been doing to Ukraine for the last 4+ years now. And so this question you raised in the previous panel, why is it important for Americans to support democracy? Because democracy is the best long-term investment in security. Because democracies do not go to war against each other. And the only way we can make the world a safer place, and the only way we can make Europe a safer place, is to work towards a democratic Russia, a Russia that will respect not only its own laws and its own constitution, but also the civilized norms of international behavior. This is the only long-term solution, and this is where the goals of us Russian Democrats and anybody who believes in a peaceful and secure world certainly align and integrate.
You're here. You're here. So I want to keep the connection that Vladimir made between geopolitics and family. So I want to turn to Weiwei Nu and Anaïse Kanimba from Burma, Myanmar, from Rwanda. And these are two daughters who have paid the price because of activism of their father in Rwanda, Paul. Your father imprisoned for 7 years because of your father as well, as a family. And I remember, I'm in this line of business in part because of Rwanda. I went and worked there right after the genocide. When I was learning through American media coverage that ethnic hatreds, long ethnic hatreds, I'd been in the Balkans, and from the Balkans went to Rwanda. And the impression was, complicated history, ethnic divisions. And by spending the time in the Balkans and Rwanda, it was pretty clear to me, we all have differences. All of our societies have differences. But there are people who weaponize those differences for power, money, violence, domination. And there's something you can call that out. And so the two of you represent one of the longest running conflicts that's played off and on in Burma, a formative one in Rwanda, and both of your families paid a dear price. You've offered geopolitical lessons and personal lessons. Weiwei, why don't you start a little bit with your perspective, what happened to your family, and why we should think about, why does this matter for others outside of Burma? Why should Americans care about this? Do you have one of the, yep.
Thank you, Damon, and thank you, Ned, again for bringing us together, and especially Burma to this stage. It is not very often that we hear about Burma in Washington, D.C., since the country is not, quote unquote, geopolitically important, right? So I'm so glad to be here. Thank you very much. Like you said, yes, I am a daughter of political leader, a member of members of parliament, ex-member of parliament, and a lifelong freedom fighter for the Rohingya population. And me being a Rohingya, freedom is a necessity. Freedom is survival. Freedom is actually a fight for dignity, a fight for justice, and a fight for equality. So for me, it's a duty and it's a survival, and it's necessity. It is not something that I felt as an option. So that's where I'm here in this business, I guess. And I inherited it from my father, from seeing him fight for his people, his country, that inspired me, and that I thought, he often say that, you know, if not me, who else, right? And I also believe that, if not me, who else? And I think it is incredibly important for all of us to basically share this message so that more people take this, see this as a necessity, not as options. Again, freedom doesn't come as it all. It requires actions, right? And that actions often come as with a price. And to me, for us as a family, we pay the price. As a teenager, the dictators, the militaries destroyed our future, our dreams, our hopes, and everything, right? But then I felt, again, it was a strip in a way of my dignity, my justice, and my being. So I need to fight back to restore my dignity. So I entered in this war from day one of my release in 2012, and then again, you know, as you continue this work, you pay the price again. You had to leave your country, and you have to live on your suitcase for many, many years. And it feels like hopeless and helpless, but still, it is a fight worth it, because it's not very personal, like I said. You know, it's not just personal. It's about your people, your country, and many people in Burma, young people like myself, when I started 24 years now, even young people younger than myself, 14 years old, 16, 18, 20 are fighting for their freedom. Thousands and thousands of them are fighting in many, many forms, including some of them are risking their life, taking arms to fight against the military dictatorship. And for the freedom, only for the freedom, not for the power. And they are paying the price. Many of them have been killed, and over 28,000 people have been arrested over the past 5 years. And it's one of the longest civil war. While my community, the Rohingya, is on the bottom of the society, being targeted for the genocidal actions, and the US government actually made the atrocity determinations as a genocide, but many other communities, especially ethnic and religious minorities, are targeted for ethnic cleansing, genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and so on. Again, not just that, they are destroying younger generation in Burma. They strip of the future of a younger generation in Burma and targeting young people. So I think, you know, this life is short, and we deserve a dignity, and a life with a dignity, a free life, and we must continue this path, regardless of the challenges, regardless of the price, as a family or as individual.
Thank you, Wei Wei. You brought dignity to the fight. You brought dignity. And Anaïse, tell us a little bit about how the experience you went through with your father transformed your own purpose, your own vocation.
Well, also thank you very much for having me here, and thank you for PubKey team to have us. It's always a true honor, pleasure, and happiness to be next to all these people. And we used to be on the circuit, actually, to go to the same conferences, same places to talk about our loved ones. And for us to come back here together in this joy is just, it's a dream. And for grace, you will be with us too very, very soon. So we'll stay with you. And the other people with you there. For me, you know, I want to go back to the genocide, what you started. My whole life, I've been affected by oppression and abuse of power. And it all started when I was 2 years old, when my parents were killed in the genocide because of who they were. I lost my parents, and then I became an orphan with my sister. Paul and Tatiana adopted me. Tatiana is my aunt. She was the sister of my father, Thomas, and my mom was Fidence. They adopted us. We got a chance to start a new life. 4 years later, 1998, we have to leave our country. We go to Belgium. We start a new life again. By 2007, we had to start a new life again. And we had to leave Belgium and go to the United States because we're still being persecuted. So until I was probably 15, we were always running away. I grew up hearing about Rwanda, the problems in our country, the lack of human rights, lack of democracy, the sadness of our people. But I also grew up in a home knowing that this could be different, because my dad always told us that we can do something about this. And I was seeing him every single day in his work, advocating for our people, being our people's voice, because they're in prison too. It's an open air prison, Rwanda, and they need a voice. And that's where he was for them. And, you know, I started my life, continue, until 2020. I thought, you know, that stuff, my human rights and my healthcare, he does democracy and politics. I thought those were not connected, but they're very connected, as you'll see very quickly. I learned very quickly, but it all changed for me in 2020 when he was kidnapped and then illegally brought to Rwanda, because the Rwandan government wanted to make him as an example to our people, that if he could take Paul Rusesabagina, bring him to prison, that he could silence everybody, whether you're inside the country or you're outside the country. And when Dad was away, you know, we thought that he was gonna come back within 5 days. It was a big mistake, but it was not. We had to fight for almost 2.5 years. And during that struggle, I finally understood really what my dad wanted for our country. I finally understood the love he had for our country. And that love came back to me too. And I realized that it was not just from Dad, it was for the people, the millions of people in my country who are in this open air prison, and others who are in these cells behind doors where you don't have a window, you don't have anything, you barely eat one time a day. So, you know, when you think that it's never gonna get back to you, you think that you can continue your life, do your global health work, things do come back to you, and you remember the purpose that you have. And the purpose that we have is to represent our people who don't have a voice today. My purpose between 2020 and 2023 was my father. And now my purpose is to free my country, to free the political prisoners in my country, but also to free all political prisoners around the world. And we were talking earlier is, you know, we have a family now. Now, my sister and I, that you guys mentioned, Karine, she's the Secretary General of the World Liberty Congress. I get to work on Bitcoin and freedom technology with other amazing freedom fighters from around the world. Never in my life would I have asked me in 2020, actually, July 2020, had you asked me that I'll be talking about this today, I would think you're crazy. But this dictatorship made me into the fighter I am today. And it's making all of us into a fighter. And they're making the mistakes by taking our loved ones in prison, that we're gonna stay silent. No, we will stand up. And now he just had Paul Rusesabagina against him. Now he has 6 children, his wife, and the entire family, and many people who had never heard of Rwanda before. So did he really want that? No. And so that's the mistake this dictator is making. But we are on the side of the right thing. We know the truth. We are fighting for the right thing. We're fighting for our freedom. And if you make the mistake to disturb us, you will hear back from us. And
all right, that's what we like here. That's what we like here. All right, I'm going to wrap up the formal part of this, and we're going to continue conversation with all of these amazing folks over drinks and food. But let me say one thing to close this out. We're having a little bit of a debate in our own country. Like, should we be supporting this type of work? What should we be doing? What's America's role in the world? Isn't this your problem? And we heard from Vladimir that if you think you can trust someone who is killing their own people, you're going to see violence come our way. I think we've learned pretty painfully that whether it's wars, conflicts, drugs, refugee flows, all the things that create problems for us come from dictators that begin with bringing those problems to their own people. But I actually think the most powerful thing is what Berta said. Every piece of polling data we look at across the United States, should the United States stand by those who are seeking freedom? For a political prisoner in Russia, in Rwanda, in Burma, in Nicaragua, in Venezuela, should we stand by those in their darkest moments? And when they need just a little bit of help, should we extend a hand, or do we turn our back? And the overwhelming response among the American people is not because of the national security or economic security, it's because it's the right thing to do. We gotta be good. And that's what worked with my family members who don't understand everything we do, because it's the right thing to do, and it's damn good for us. And when you hear their stories, when we hear your stories, we're really proud to be your friends. So thanks for turning out for these amazing people. Give them a pat. Support everybody out here in this audience. And have another round.